Hey, everybody, welcome to the live. It is Kim Howerton. Glad to be here with you on Tuesday. It's Tuesday. It's always Tuesday. Somehow I forget what day it is. And there's like weird light playing as usual. So just fun with Windows here. And I am glad to be joining you for a Q&A session on whatever your heart desires to talk about. I, as usual, got distracted and am now trying to put my head on straight. I just think that is something I will be saying for the rest of my life. And having a good week. I'm in Northern California. We did not get the torrential flooding where I specifically live, though within a driving distance, it was pretty bad. And then Southern California has gotten just crazy hit with water. So I hope everyone is safe wherever you are tuning in from. And today the sun is shining bright right here anyway. So glad to have you on the stream. If you have a question, please pose it via text in the comments, and then I can hopefully answer said question. I had a funny thing happen, which was, and I thought, oh, I should do a podcast about this, and I haven't done it yet, but it's only been a couple days, so I don't feel behind yet. But a client of mine who is on social media and I were talking, and she had posted like a before, like a picture from her starting her keto journey to now, and she's lost several hundred pounds, and looks amazing. And someone posted on the comment, and it was, I didn't see it. She was sharing the story, and and she said, and someone commented, and I was like, let me guess. Did they say keep going? She's like, yes. And I was like, that is my least favorite comment ever. And I'm trying to put a good spin on it in my mind. I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, I'm sure, like, I don't want to assume any malice, right? Because most people, it's like, hey, you're doing a great job. Don't lose hope. Keep going. But what I hear and what she heard and what I think every other person actually hears is, good try. You're not there yet. Right? 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 How do you take that comment? Have you ever made that comment and regretted it? Are you currently regretting any times you might have made that comment? What do you think about the comment? Keep going. Um, it hits me wrong. It feels like such a backhanded compliment, and I just think I hear it from clients as kind of like something that really mentally derails them. So I don't think it's always meant that way, but it always comes across that way to me. Anyway, I what are your thoughts on the matter? Or what is your favorite or least favorite compliment you've ever gotten from somebody? My favorite compliment probably was when I was doing in-home sales. I mean, maybe not like my favorite, but my most interesting compliment was doing in-home sales. I used to be a closet designer. So, oh, there's a fire truck or something. And I would go to people's houses and I would redesign their closets. That's what I did. And when I showed up, a woman and I got to talking. I was at her house, and it's very personal when people invite you into their homes. And she said, we were been talking for a while, and I think we were like wrapping up. She was going to buy something. I was going to design something for her, and she was like, I have to tell you, you are nothing like I imagined a closet designer would be. And I have to say, I couldn't be more pleased. And I thought, well, that's a nice way to say it. I guess she thought I was going to be awful, is all I could get out of that. Because, anyway, but that was my funniest compliment I feel like I've ever gotten. Amy says, when you lose weight and someone says, you look good now. Oh, yeah, right? You look good now. Right? Like inflection on that, right? Is it like, you look good now? Or you look good now? Or, yeah, there's no good way to say that, really. There's no good way to say it. It's just a sticky wicket. The whole like compliments on weight loss thing, that's rough, right? But yeah, it's rough out there, and like I don't want to be mad at anyone that we've all said things and you've thought, oh my God, what did I just say? That was terrible. That was awful. What came out of my mouth? So it's not like to shame anybody, but it's more like just kind of like, let's just be real with each other here and say like, what have you heard that made you feel bad? So we can talk about it, right? Right? Yeah. So what is anyone struggling with, dealing with, thinking about? I'd love to hear it. So, or what wins can we celebrate today? Has anyone had something go really successfully? My win is a pair of pants I bought that are were always a little too small. I just put them on, and I have to say they're not comfortable, but they look fine. They look like they fit. Do you ever have those pants where you're like they look like they fit, but I can't breathe? Anyway, so we're still working on them, but they look good now. I can't wear something that doesn't also feel good yet. So we got to keep going a little bit. Val, I'm so proud of you. What, you weren't before? Right. And proud is such a weird one, right? I'm so proud of you. Why are you proud of me? I don't know. There are certain people in my life that I really like want to be proud of me. Like when my boyfriend says he's proud of me, it's like it touches my heart in a way that very little else. It like hits a spot that it doesn't hit with anyone else. I think, because I respect him and I want him to think good things about me um and I'm insecure and I like to hear it, right? But yeah, it's always I actually don't really feel that weird about hearing I'm proud of you, but sometimes I feel weird about saying it. Like sometimes I think to say it and then I think, do I sound like I'm taking some credit for what they've accomplished? Anyway, it's a weird one. It's a I'm proud of you is a funky one, Val. I would agree with you on that. It can be good in the right circumstances, but also like there are certain things where it's like, what are you proud of me about? Because like, yeah, the effort to like change your life and change your health and do all that, like there's a lot of effort there and that's worthy of being proud of for sure. But then the question becomes like, are you just like, are you proud of me for looking different? Or like, yeah, it's like it gets a little messy in there. Like if you like if they know the struggle you've been through, if they know all the work that went in, if they know like the toil and all that, like they know the journey, like that makes more sense. But like if someone just randomly sees you and you look different, like I mean, who knows why you lost the weight? You could have a disease. And it's like I'm proud of you. Well, no, no. I think it's just, I mean, I didn't grow up this way. Like I grew up in the 80s, right? In the 90s. Was I still a kid in that? I was not. Look, I was like a young adult. I was an adult, young adult. Anyway, but I grew up in the 80s and the early 90s. And we talked about each other's bodies all the time, right? It was like kind of it wasn't really talked about like it is now as being, none of your business. And I just think it's so much better to think, well, their body is none of my business. Like if someone has hired me, their body is literally my business. But otherwise, like a random person walking down the street, their body is none of my business. And that's been something that's hard for me. And so it makes compliments also a little bit sticky, right? You want to like support your friends, you want to support people, and if someone looks great, you want to tell them they look great. But yeah, I've heard people say like if you want it, compliment them when they were bigger. You shouldn't compliment them for being smaller, right? Like if they were a friend of yours who'd be like, "You look great. That outfit looks great on you. You look super," right? Like before that, and now you're complimenting them. Perhaps you shouldn't. You should just not say anything. Um, Kristen says, I think that being a bigger person, I've always wore bigger clothes. So what feels tight on me, skinny girls are fine with. Totally, totally, Kristen. I agree with you on that so much because um this is gonna sound funny. Um Nisha was wearing an outfit once, Nisha Salisbury was wearing an outfit once where I saw her and she's like, I feel like I'm dressed like you today. Like she was wearing an outfit with like a pair of pants that like I would have worn. Like anyway, not the same size. We're like big bear, baby bear. But and she's like, I can see why you wear pants like this. They're so comfortable. And then I look at like the pants she wears, which look like torture devices. They look amazing on her, but I'm like, oh, that much denim, that tightly wound to my body. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm old and I like cozy. So like, yeah, when I put on like a nicely fitted, high-waisted pair of like firm denim pants, like the pants I just tried on, they're denim with no stretch at all. Like they don't have any like no lycra. They're pure old-fashioned thick denim. They're like a denim trouser that look pretty good actually, but I was like, these are pants. These are like not comfy pants. So it's a challenge. Like I'm like, I put these on for a photo shoot and then take them off. Anyway. Yeah. Val says, I like Leonard's mom on the Big Bang Theory. You must be proud of them, her kids. Why aren't they my accomplishments? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Why? They aren't my accomplishments, right? Yeah, yeah. Kim says, I'm carnivore and have finally started strength training and I gained 5 pounds. Well, good news for you, Kim. Those are good 5 pounds. Well, the first thing I will say is let's talk about weight fluctuations. Sorry, the light is like, ugh. Weight fluctuations, right? So weight fluctuations are going to happen. And especially when if you've just started strength training, that 5 pounds is like 90% water weight. If that 5 pounds like persists for a long time, it's some water weight and some muscle gain, right? It's not, sorry. I should read the whole comment before I start talking. Uh, I've been fairly consistent with training for about 3 months. So have you gained that 5 pounds over those 3 months? So yeah, the body one when when you're working your muscles consistently, they hang on to water. They retain water, and so that's gonna be a little bit of a boost on the scale. And then your muscles might be growing, and that's gonna boost the scale a little bit. And so the reality is those are good pounds. Those are I know it is so challenging when we still have some excess body fat that we'd like to lose to see the scale go up at all. I actually think this is one of the hardest things to navigate in the trying to get healthier, trying to lose weight and starting a workout routine kind of, you know, points. And so I feel you. I have been you. I understand that feeling. Um, and you've got to work with your mind here to think that um, that is not body fat. As long as you haven't, significantly increased your food intake, you know what I mean? You would likely know, right? And if you have gained 5 pounds and you were about 10 pounds from where you wanted to be, gosh, you're right in the neighborhood of where you want to be, right? And so it would be, I think it's the smartest thing in the world to do, to just continue to work out really hard, and it's going to improve your body composition even without significant weight loss, and then work on the weight loss subtly. And so yeah, you should join my program, Kim. And you can totally do this. So looking at what you're eating, and I would at this point probably, I know it's a tough one. I would stop relying on the scale as a metric. I would start relying on like how your clothes fit and maybe measurements of your body, because if you are gaining muscle, you won't typically see like your hip or your waist going up as you're gaining some scale weight, because that area doesn't have a lot. Like, I mean, let's get like a giant, very high booty, right? Which will interfere with the hip a little bit. Um, that can be sort of like maybe it's time to start looking at different metrics. So instead of the scale, starting to more lean on the way your clothes fit. Trying to find the right line. The way your clothes fit and your measurements. And then keep working on that. I really think those last 10 pounds that we want to lose are often best lost by adding in more movement, more exercise. Sometimes by that point, we aren't eating a ton. Our eating isn't super, you've lost 90 pounds, you got 10 to go. I don't know how much you lost, but then, you kind of know what you're doing by that point. Now it's just a really hard part. And sometimes just continuing to eat less isn't going to be beneficial for all of us in that phase. And so it is beneficial maybe to just start really ramping up how active we are and what we're doing in the gym and trying to go for a little bit of recomposition. That is losing some body fat while we're gaining some muscle at the same time, which might mean the scale is level or a little higher, but our body composition is changing. So, whereas before we were maybe 40% body fat, now we're 30%, right? That percentage of us that is body fat is dropping down. Yeah, I've come almost 70 pounds lost, thousands if you count the fluctuations. Totally, totally. So yeah, you've got to, work all that into your mental framework. But I think you're doing an awesome job, Kim. If you, got yourself in the gym and you're seeing some strength gains, you're watching what you can lift, how much you can lift, go up on a regular basis. I mean, it's just going to make your, the years that are coming much, much better, healthier. Ultimately, when we're losing weight, whatever age we are, right? We want to essentially be at one point, I'm not calling anyone old, but at some point you want to be a strong old person, not a weak old person. And even if you carry an extra 5 to 10 pounds of body fat, more than you would potentially optimally want from some like framework you have in your brain, you will live longer and be healthier, being strong than being skinny. Okay. So there's like a matrix of like, call it like the fluffy, like a little extra body fat to some extra muscle, right? So high muscle, low muscle, high body fat, low body fat, right? So if you make like a little X with that, and there are 4 quadrants, um, the worst case scenario is low muscle and low body fat as we age. Now, of course, we don't want out of control body fat. That is its own problem, but you're better off a little bit extra body fat with extra muscle than the opposite. For certainly, the opposite is terrible. Um, but uh, but yeah. So, in terms of like how people survive falls when they're in their 70s and 80s, the ones with a little bit of extra muscle mass and a little extra padding do a lot better than the ones with no muscle mass and no padding. So, just things to think about as we get into our later years. The reality is I've already lost the game against sagging skin and skin folds and rolls and wrinkles. I'm not, there's just not going to be a swimsuit model in competition in my future. I would like to be healthy. And I'm vain enough to want to look good, right? We all want to look good in our clothes and feel good. But I think as we get older, we should pay less attention to, you know, looks and more attention to function. I don't want to be boring, but that's just kind of the way that it goes. Anyway, my boyfriend and I are having Chipotle bowls, as we call them tonight. We kept ordering bowls from Chipotle and being like, these aren't that good. We can do better. So I made him last night just to kind of get it ready ahead of time. He eats carbs more than I do. I eat some carbs. He eats a lot of carbs. With a lot-ish. I don't know. It's all relative. And so I made the sort of cilantro lime rice for him last night, and today I was making myself cilantro lime cauliflower rice. And then he has black beans. Sometimes I add a little bit, sometimes I don't. Again, I'm in the low carb range, so occasionally I'll add a little bit of something, but not much. And then I made chicken. We have salsa. I put Greek yogurt instead of sour cream, just because I always have Greek yogurt and I don't want to buy sour cream if I don't need to. Although then when I buy sour cream and I eat sour cream, I'm like, this is delicious. But the Greek yogurt adds a little more protein, which I like. And we have some cheese. I sometimes forget to put that on there. And some guacamole. So we got all that ready for dinner. And then I don't know about you guys, but once we do something like that for the week, I just eat it every night. I hear about people who don't like leftovers. Do you like leftovers? Are you a person that likes leftovers or hates leftover? Like some people are like, no, if I have to reheat it, I'm a no. And I'm like, gosh, that must be exhausting. If you're not the cook and you are that person, um, then you need to pay somebody to do it because your spouse should not. I'm going out there. I'm going out on a limb. Sometimes I'll hear from wives or husbands who are like, my husband doesn't like leftovers, so I cook a fresh dinner every night. And I'm like, better you than me, because I would bring him. I don't know. I don't know. You know what though? If I told my boyfriend, "Hey, can you cook me a fresh dinner every night?" He'd probably be like, "Okay." So maybe I'm just bitchy. I don't know. Anyway, Debbie says, "I'm doing squats and calf raises as we speak. Not being able to get off the ground is scary." Totally. And that actually got so I have a client that's amazing. Her name is Lisa. She's been on the cover of Woman's World, and she's lost a ton of weight and she's reversed her type 2 diabetes and she has now gotten licensed as a personal trainer. So she's gotten super into working out. And the thing that got her started on her journey was she had a dog, like an elderly dog, I think, and she got down on the floor to play with said dog. And then she could not get off the floor. So she had to call emergency to get off the floor, right? Or maybe she waited for her husband. Now I can't remember the story fully, but she was thinking, I think, I don't want to call 911 because I can't get off the floor. And yeah, you got to be able to get off the floor. Val says, I like leftovers. My husband, not so much, but he will eat them. Okay, good. Liz says, my husband doesn't like leftover steak. Now, I get not liking a certain food left over, I guess, right? Because re-warmed up meat of some types is not as good. So I get that. There are techniques you can use to make it better, and certainly, it's easy to over microwave a leftover meat, and then it's terrible. So I'm overly judgmental about the leftovers, maybe. But what I usually do is make sure that if I'm making steak, I leave it really rare when I make it. So when I'm reheating it, there's a little wiggle room to reheat it before it's overdone. That's my technique. And I don't mind throwing. I, you know what we so this is so this is what we do. We do a lot of steak in the air fryer. And so I will get a big piece of meat and cut it up into individual steaks or buy multiple steaks. And then I will portion it. Like usually my boyfriend and I might share a steak, right? And so I'll make it so that each piece of meat is 1 to 2 servings, and then I'll throw tonight's in the air fryer so that that would be fresh, right? But it's all ready to go in the fridge, and I all I have to do is throw it in the air fryer and turn that on. That's kind of my happy medium about fresh steak or meat every night. When if I'm like, this isn't going to be as good leftover. That's a good workaround from my perspective. I don't want to get the kitchen dirty every night for sure. And I am a kitchen dirtier for sure. When I cook, there's stuff everywhere. I can't stir without flinging it on the stove. My boyfriend is like, you have a talent, a real talent. Like I use the sink, the countertops are flooded, like it's just water. He's like, how do you get water everywhere? I am like a 4-year-old. I mean, I'm safe to cook. I haven't, burned the house down or anything, but like it's a mess. So I don't like to have to clean that up every day. I blame my mother, or she didn't like to cook. So our rule when I was a child was if I cooked, she'd clean. So I didn't really pay much attention to being clean. Anyway, Catherine says some things are good the next day. That's true for sure. There are certain foods that are better the next day. Absolutely. I have gotten really into, okay, the ingredients aren't perfect, I'll say, but I, for the first time, tried Rayo's Alfredo sauce, and that stuff is really, really good. It's not bad. The carbs are really low. I end up using like 2 tablespoons of it on some miracle noodles with some meat and make sort of like an Alfredo pasta meat thing. And it's like 1 gram of carbs for that sauce, and it's delicious. I think there's some type of I should go look. There is some type of starch in there for sure, right? Those like pre-made sauces. But I'm gonna say, like, if you're a person who's like good enough, those have been useful in my pantry. So, like, I'll make pasta for Eric, and I'll make palm brain miracle noodles or konjac noodles for myself, and we'll do that. So, um, I sometimes do things like some of you are going to be like, I am canceling Kim. She had some wheat starch in her sauce. I used to be a zealot, super zealot about ingredients. So I get it wherever you're coming from. I don't mean zealot as an insult either. Some of us have to be super, super careful about the ingredients we use. Some of us might have autoimmune issues or problems with just dealing with different sensitivities. So we all have to pick our own level of care about those things for sure. And I don't know. Somebody called me dirty keto for eating salami once. I mean, we all put our boundaries in. Oh no, bacon. They called me dirty keto for eating bacon. Anyway, I don't know. We all have our own boundaries, and the keto police are everywhere. Where do I find miracle noodles? I can find them at Sprouts and Whole Foods. You can also order them online. I've tried a couple different brands. Some of them add things like oat bran, and again, not everybody loves oat bran in there, because it is sort of a bran. And it's not the same as oats exactly in terms of like oat flour, but not everyone is down with the oat bran either. I kind of liken it to psyllium husk, so I don't see it as a big problem. But again, person to person, you got to do what's right for you. Catherine is confused. Do you mean you haven't seen them at Sprouts or Whole Foods? Yeah, that's in my area, I can find them at Sprouts and Whole Foods. Val says, "Have I tried cottage cheese bowls? I've seen they're a thing lately." Well, maybe. I mean, maybe not. It depends what you mean by a cottage cheese bowl. I eat cottage cheese in a bowl. So for breakfast, often I'll have a mix of cottage cheese and Greek yogurt and fruit as a breakfast. I find it actually very filling and satisfying, and I like the combination of the Greek yogurt with the cottage cheese. It kind of balances the flavors and the textures for me. And then I have used cottage cheese, like blended cottage cheese in a bunch of casseroles. My guess is you might be I've seen a couple people do like a cottage cheese pizza bowl, so that might be something you're referring to. Um, and I have yet to do the cottage cheese pizza thing. But for Christmas, we took over you guys, Christmas for my visit to my boyfriend's family is always I was about to say a nightmare. I don't mean it that way. So I'm basically keto. Uh eats whatever. Um oh, I see. I see. Catherine, yeah. Um his mom eats a lot of carbs and whatever. She'll eat meat and she's an omnivore. I'll put it that way. There's low carb. My boyfriend's an omnivore. His mother's an omnivore. Doesn't get keto at all. And his sister and her boyfriend or husband, they're married now, are uh, vegetarians. So it's like, oh God, what are we gonna eat? Is always the kind of thing, right? And so the answer every year has been a frittata because they'll eat dairy, they'll eat cheese and eggs. They won't eat any meat. So every year it's what frittata will we be making this year? And this year I made a spinach and mushroom frittata. Um, and I basically did a blend, like I blended up a whole container of good culture cottage cheese and beat that with eggs. And that was sort of the base of the frittata, right? And then I added a bunch of spinach and mushrooms and cheese to that. And so it was very tasty. And yeah, so a frittata, if they were vegan, we would just be out of luck and there would be different dinners. But a frittata, it brings everyone together with a common meal, right? But it is very challenging. The vegetarian crossed with the keto people, very challenging. I told them at dinner about carnivore. They were horrified. I might have did it to be a little bit of a prankster. Just because it's fun to talk about things with your in-laws where you're like, I don't know, Let me tell you this thing that will horrify you. And so we discussed carnivore a little bit. They could not, the vegetarians could not wrap their head around the carnivore situation. And I was like, it's not that different. You don't eat meat, they only eat meat. Same size, different kind, different effects, different health outcomes. But we did we did get into a nice solid debate about how our ancestors ate. That was fun. Anyway, as I've gotten older, stopped being intimidated by some of these conversations. So it's good. Also, my boyfriend is an excellent debater. So I just let him talk a lot. Anyway, even though he's an omnivore, he is certainly on the side of the carnivore in that equation. Whether we were carnivores, more like not that we were full carnivores, but that we definitely meat is a central part of the evolution of humans. So that was what we were discussing a little bit. Anyway, Christmas is over. What am I doing? Anyway, whatever. Debbie says I batch cook a variety of meats and freeze the portions. Help stay on track. I don't think of them as leftovers. Yeah, that's a great way to batch cooking. Very good way to think of it. Catherine's funny. I think you need reservations at a restaurant for sure, for sure. Um, Catherine was also confused that someone thought dirty keto was bacon. Yeah, I get this occasionally that people, it's like what is pornography, right? Like what do we call things? And for some people who think, it's like they still have some of the old thinking around food that like bacon is junk food or certain or like burgers from a fast food restaurant are junk, are low quality, and so their version of keto is saintly, and only has like organic grass-fed meat and this kind of stuff, and I'm like, okay, that's your version, but don't call me dirty keto for that. I mean, you can call me whatever you want, but I'm not going to agree with you. They didn't like that I didn't agree with them. I'm like you can draw your boundaries wherever you like, my love. Like go right on ahead. It's no skin off my nose that you don't eat bacon. I don't care. But then when I'm like, I don't think that's dirty keto in my mind, and they're like, you're wrong, and I'm like, okay. The world is a strange place, right? I think we can all agree. Oh, by the way, if you're watching tonight, could you do me a favor? Could you like the video? If you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, like the video. Give it a like, give it a thumbs up, give it a smiley face. Don't give me a frowny face. They make me upset. Do something positivity. That would be awesome. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, you can subscribe, and that also is awesome. So anyway, I found a great article this week, you guys. It was a great article. Do any of you have high LP little a? Is that something that concerns you? Have you been hearing about LP little a lot in the news recently, or in the science news recently? Catherine says, do we have to exit the video to like it? I don't think so. That is a good question. If you can't find a way to like the video, try to remember on your way out, because you don't have to go. Okay, so LP little a stands for lipoprotein little a. And LP little a is a type of uh, brain, lipoprotein. There we go. Sort of like LDL is a lipoprotein, HDL is a lipoprotein. And LP little a is one that is very genetic. So someone might have very low LP little a, or oh, thanks, Val. Okay, we'll like it on your way out. I'll remind you when we're done. And then some people have genetically high LP little a, so it can range from like under 10. Like they're like, we can't measure it really, but it's very low, under 10. Um, till some people will be like 120, right? Like it can go high to low. It's not like thousands. It's like, somewhere between basically 0 and a little over 100. I've never heard of it being over 200. I don't know if it gets there. Anyway, and it's supposed to, the sort of mainstream on that is that you don't want it to be high, that it increases your risk of heart attack. Thanks, Debbie. And it's just, there's a lot of doom and gloom about it. And so a lot of people are really scared because this one is pretty genetic. It's just you just kind of have it. A lot of people will say there are things you can move it a little bit, but not much. And so, I've heard people basically say you can test it once and that's fine because it's probably not going to change much. Now, I am in the camp that it happens to be incredibly low. So I don't have a leg to stand on to in a lot in the fight. But some people I've heard of, it's like 120 or pretty high, and so they say like every like 30 to 50 point increment it goes up, your risk of heart disease supposedly goes up quite a bit as well. But I found this great paper, and it makes I don't like it as a marker because I don't know, you can't fix it. So how I'm like, it makes me upset for people if it's high. They're like, I don't know how to fix it. I'm like, I don't know how to fix it either because it's not very movable. But I found this great article that basically said that high LP little a is only really an issue if you also have high inflammation. And I was like, oh, well, because high inflammation is an issue by itself. So it kind of does it like what does it mean then? Because high inflammation, we all can agree that high inflammation is bad and you should lower your inflammation levels, right? It might not be easy, but that's a thing we all agree on. That's not a controversial point. Um, and and so this article was basically like, yeah, if your inflammation is really low, it doesn't really look like LP little a matters much at all, whether it's high or low. And I was like, oh, great, good information. I can share that information. That's great information because that you can do something about, right? So anyway, basically, long story short, everyone should have less inflammation, right? That is a tough one. You guys, I am somebody that seems to have I have higher levels of inflammation than I would like, and but they're lower than they've ever been in my life. Um, but there are some reasons that some of us just maybe even genetically or because we also have a autoimmune condition, right? That certain levels of inflammation can be high. Now, there is an interesting thing you can do. Who here has high inflammation? And who here doesn't know what I mean? So, the kind of primary test for inflammation is going to be HSCRP, high sensitivity C reactive protein, which is not the same thing as C-peptide. Sometimes people confuse those things, but high sensitivity C-reactive protein is called HS, lowercase h, lowercase s, capital C, capital R, capital P. And high sensitivity C-reactive protein is a marker that you can look at to look at your systemic levels of inflammation. Now, this is a movable marker. Let's say you got a blood test right after you broke your leg, it would be high because your body is inflamed because all the healing is going to that broken bone, right? It's trying to heal that injury. It would be normal and appropriate for you to have high HSCRP after that, right? Because you need that inflammation right now. It's acute inflammation and it's useful. And you have a cut, you have an infection, you're coming down with something, you got a disease, right? All those things, it's going to be higher. You just had a really hard workout, your HSCRP goes up, but you don't want it high for a long time, right? And so if that's high for a long time, it's something to look at. But there do seem to be some people where HSCRP just seems to be higher than you think it should be. And then there are other inflammatory markers you can cross reference. You can look at things like um, your SED rate, which is your sedimentary rate, it's called, but that's a good one for looking at inflammation. You can look at your apparently glycated albumin can actually track with some inflammation. You can also do things like look at your fibrinogen level, which is going to tell you about clotting factors, right? And so there are a lot of different things you can look at. It's the hope is not lost with one marker, I want to say. And I guess I just want to, make sure people know that these blood lab things, which I talk about a lot because I write about them, are complex and not just like, oh, this one marker is bad, everything's ruined. You want to look at multiple markers that kind of can help you focus in on what's going on in the body. So, always important. Anyway, so that's I think what we have to talk about for today. Is there anything else that people would like me to discuss? Catherine says, I have your book, need to read it again. Thanks, Catherine. I appreciate it. If any questions come up, please let me know. Becky says, don't you think net carbs is what's causing negativity about keto? All the keto marketing, processed food, why keto is not working for them. Um, yes. I don't know if all the negativity about keto is coming from that, but I do think that there are a lot of products being marketed as keto that I would um, definitely want people to be a lot more aware because yeah, I think a lot of people are almost eating they're like the like what we would call more of a standard American diet, ketoized, right? They just made some trades. Like they stopped buying Reese's peanut butter cups and they started buying Quest peanut butter cups, right? And they haven't really changed the thrust of how they're eating. And I think that's just a recipe for disaster. Like I do include sweeteners in the way that I eat and I do those things, but I think you have to really understand the effect on their body and what are these mystery fibers in these products and how do they actually impact us and you know if you're eating like a keto junk food diet and you're like, but I'm in ketosis, then it's like, well, are you really doing all the good health changes you need? And I would say no. No, I would say no. I think there are other reasons that there is negativity at times. It's a lot of different things, but I think one of the reasons that people are not it's like people like it's lost it's I don't think for everybody, but I think keto kind of lost its heart in a way with these products. I don't think it's lost. It's a weird way to say it. I think it got blurry, right? Like keto used to mean certain things, and now it doesn't. And that's okay. Things evolve, things change. But I don't know what the term is. You know what I mean? Like you could used to be able to assume certain things when someone said keto. And I don't think you can assume those things anymore. And the more that kind of happens, the less clear it gets, more murky it gets, and then more challenges come up, I think. Um, Debbie Sue said, my LPA is very high, but my inflammatory markers are good. So I just focus on staying as healthy as I can. Absolutely. Don't freak out. Freaking out is not going to help you. Um, Catherine says, I have tried NutriSense, which uses a Libra 2, tried Libra 3, all very off from blood test markers. Yeah, there can be, I've struggled with the Abbott Libre sensors at times. Some of them have felt pretty accurate. And then I get a fair number of sensors that I'm like, this sensor is on crack. What is happening with these markers? And so if you can get your hands on a Dexcom, I think they're more accurate, I would say. But I mean, I know type 1 diabetics who use the Libras and think they're pretty good. And if they're using them to be part of their blood sugar management system, then they're within a tolerance range. But I think we have to really evaluate, what we're trying to see. Because I think a lot of times people will be like, I'm trying to figure out, oh gosh, that's awful, Catherine. Yes. I'm trying to figure out, if somebody comes to me and says, I don't understand why sometimes my blood sugar is 95 and other times it's like 85 and like what's going on there? And I really want a CGM to track down what, and I'm like, your CGM can't tell you that. Those numbers are too close together. It does big numbers, not little numbers. Like it'll tell you, you can use it to say like, hey, why am I at 100 sometimes and 140 other times? That's a big enough spread. But if it's like within 5 to 10 points, no, garbage data, not going to help you. So don't waste your money. That's kind of my thought on it. Catherine, the alarms going off in the night. Yeah. Yeah, that was a big no for me. So you can't I think I did find a way to silence the alarm on the Libre, but I had to work to figure it out. Or I think you have to turn off your phone. But yeah, I always would get woken up at like 4 in the morning with a low blood sugar. And I'm like, it's not low. I just rolled on my arm because I'm a side sleeper. And it's terrible. I'm sorry. Yeah, I get it. It's not okay. It's not okay. Um, I believe one night in the middle of the night, I like ripped it off my arm in a fit of pique. Anyway, but yeah, the Dexcoms unfortunately are a little more expensive, but I hear they're a good deal at Costco. So, and you said, did you say you got it through a service? So the services will get you a Dexcom as well. Not a 7. I think I got like a Dexcom 5 last time when I ordered one from them. But anyway, see what you can do. I think there are great reasons to have a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor, but I think we have to be also just really aware of its limitations in what we can use. So, um, so yeah. But if your doctor will write you a script, or you have a doctor in your life that will write you a script, or then that's the least expensive way to go. And then shop around, because I found really, really different prices at at different locations. Costco versus CVS versus Walgreens. Shop around and even look at like GoodRx, which is a subscription service where you can get coupons for things. And always ask your pharmacy. Whenever I get a sensor from my pharmacy, I say, "Hey, do you have any discounts on this?" And they look in their system and they have a discount. So I've almost never paid full price for that, for those. And Catherine, I don't know, but I think you can use the Costco pharmacy without a Costco membership. Look into that. I don't know if it's true, but it's a rumor that I heard. So anyway, um, hey Sasha, how you doing? Good to see ya. Um, you're here at the end. We're just closing up, but I'm glad you stopped in. Anyway, all right, yeah. So, what's going on in the world? I'm looking forward to being in Las Vegas in March. If any of you are in around the Las Vegas area, I'm going to Dave Feldman's conference there. And no worries, Sasha. Uh, uh, and and I'd love to see you there. Entry level tickets are only 25 bucks, or whatever you'd like to donate. He's got a sliding scale, so it's going to be a really inexpensive conference. And Dr. Barry's going to be speaking. Jamie Seaman's going to be speaking. A lot of really smart people about lipids are going to be speaking. So it's a really good opportunity, especially you West Coast and Midwest people. Vegas is cheap tickets, good prices on hotels, and it's coming in mid March. So if you have an opportunity to do that, to go there, I think tickets are still available. It would be a great time to see everybody get together. Okay, guys, I will see you next week. I hope you have a good night. Bye bye.